I would call it very strong volumes. So definitely there's buying here, and persistent buying is there in the stock. Can easily test levels of 790, 795 on the upside. So I would be a buyer in the stock for sure. If you already have it, trail your stop losses. Maybe close to about 650 should be a stop loss. And if you want a fresh entry, definitely you can enter the stock even at current levels. And you could see levels of 795, 800 from medium term in the stock.
Okay, so that's a take on Anant Raj. And Kunal, we were just discussing Anant Raj yesterday and how this entire data center GCC opportunity could play up for the stock. But another significant name in this entire data center space is LTI Mindtree. Give us a sense of how that stock is shaping up on the charts, and are you seeing any positivity there?
Not really over there, because that stock has clearly been an underperformer. L&T Infotech Mindtree, I think, made a high in 2023, 7,500 levels. From there on, the last 2 years, the stock has just been to a major struggle. Even on the short-term charts, there is lack of momentum for L&T Infotech Mindtree. The stock is still trading at 5,000, 5,500 band over the very near term. The concern for many of the times, many of the stocks, in these times, is that volume push generally gets missing. And when you don't see a major volume push, even after a spate of positive news flows, which happens into the stock prices, that generally tells you that there is no interest of buyers into these stocks, and that's why these stocks may continue to just about trade into their own bands of consolidation. So I'm expecting the same for L&T Infotech Mindtree.
All right, let's watch out for some of these counters. But along with that, the other pocket that is going to be in focus today is actually the companies which cater to import of the cranes, because DGTR has actually recommended imposing an anti-dumping duty on imports of the cranes from China for the next 5 years. And some of these domestic companies like Sangvi Movers, Ace Constructions, they are going to be in focus today. But Chakri, just wanted to get your sense on this one, given the fact that the infrastructure pickup is seen to be happening. What sort of a growth will you pencil in for such companies? Because I do remember clearly that post-COVID, when this whole economy was seeing a bit of a revamp and coming back on tracks, these companies were actually being one of the multi-baggers. But this DGTR announcement, along with that, the push on the macro side, what's your sense on these?
No, you're absolutely right. If you step back and look, whether it's you're building a dam or a house or an office, all of them requires cranes, JCBs and all, and most of that equipment is imported by Action Construction, ACE, Bharat Earth Movers. And these companies have also forayed into manufacturing their own equipment as well. Now, all they needed was a push, and that push has come now from the government. And now if that materializes from the same PLI which benefited a number of sectors in the past, can do again wonders for an ACE or BEML and companies in that space. But I think the import component is so big that these companies will benefit big time in the growth that is to come in the coming years.
Okay, bunch of stocks which are also going to be in focus then this morning, and we've talked about autos as to how both Maruti and Hyundai have talked about how much delivery they actually saw on day one of Navratri, which kick-started yesterday. 25,000 cars delivered from Marutis, and they state in their own words that it's a response that like they've never seen before. And for Hyundai as well, they've recorded about 11,000 billings, the highest single-day bookings in about 5 years. Also because many were waiting for those GST rollouts to happen, so they were holding back on new purchases in any case. Other than that, of course, there's the gold financiers as well. Remember, gold continues to extend its gains. International prices have now hit a record of $37.50 to an ounce. So Manappuram Muthoot, they continue to be in focus also. And of course, defense names. The defense secretary has now pointed to big capex push and about 30,000 crores worth of drone purchases. So that particular segment within defense as well is looking quite interesting. Chakri, the listed pool within the sort of drone manufacturers or the entire supply chain seems to be very limited right now. But anything that you're spotting?
I think within drone in particular, there's no particular drone manufacturer, whether it's a Bharat Electronics, all these companies are getting into that space. And now, that has become the new big area, not just drones, but, high-tech warfare. defense spend, whether it's Europe, 5% of GDP, India wants to spend 2 to 3% of its GDP. And what it has done, the time to market has reduced dramatically because of technology. And that's where India is actually in a good space because of its talent pool available. So, all the defense companies, because whether it's a Bharat Electronics or a Hindustan Aeronautics, these are the end buyers. And a number of startups service into them, or supply into them. So I think if you just look at the big ones, you will benefit from the drone manufacturing.
Although there is Dronacharya as well as, Idea Forge, which are specifically into drones, but those are relatively newer listed entities. But Aditya, anything within the defense pack that you're liking for a near-term trade?
There are a couple of stocks, Aisha, which do stand out. The first one is HAL. We've seen a good up move in the stock, and now it's entering into a narrow consolidation phase. I think it's a good time to again latch onto this stock. On the downside, 4750 is a good support area, shouldn't break that easily. On the upside, stock can test levels of 5200. So HAL is something which definitely tops the chart. Then second, BEL is also something which is looking quite interesting. Here too, we're seeing a similar kind of a chart setup after a breakout, a narrow consolidation. Yesterday, we saw minor profit taking as well. So my sense is you can also look at a BEL with a stop loss just around 390-95 odd levels. And stock has the potential to cross its previous peak, which was somewhere around 430, and test levels of 450 as well. Apart from that, there's a small company, Astra Microsystems, that is also looking quite interesting, Aisha. So that can also test levels of about 1300 on the upside. On the downside, good support lies between 1050, 1070.
Okay, so that's the take on the defense space. But, while we're talking about defense, Kunal, yesterday we had news flow on two shipping counters. Shipping Corporation of India on the back of multiple MOUs that they've signed. And also you had Garden Reach that has bagged a big order from Germany. So what is your take when it comes to some of these shipbuilders within the defense pack? Because, they've been absolutely silent. But in the last 1 week or so, we've seen some moves coming in back over here.
So yeah, I think price activity is suggesting that we are heading towards a breakout for many of these names. Shipping Corporation of India, MMTC, then you've looked at, GRSC. There are many names over here where after weeks and months of actually price correction, these stocks have started to show signs of breakout. Volumes are making a comeback. So even if you look at a cluster of volumes over the last, 1 week, 1 month or so for these stocks, there is a remarkable change for the volume patterns for these names with respect to the historical volumes preceding the move where these stocks went into a corrective phase. That itself tells you that there's a buying interest which has come back into these names. Now, when prices go into a breakout, when news flow starts to become positive, that's a more like a perfect ingredient towards stock prices coming out of a major corrective phases and restarting their long-term uptrends or medium-term uptrends, as the case could be. So I think in this case, I would probably believe that many of the stocks, Garden Reach, Shipping Corporation of India, MTC, etc., I think these stocks continue to look very attractive, and I think dips should be taken as good buying or accumulative opportunity.
All right, so that's the take coming in on select counters with respect to shipping. But along with that, Kunal, there's been no stopping for Bajaj Finance and Bajaj Finserv. Anything in particular you're spotting over there?
So in fact, I actually believe that these stocks would go into a pause over here because after this recent run up, we are at a point where large cap stocks are not showing signs of momentum. And generally, when you don't see too many large cap stocks firing up, you expect that the ones which have been doing reasonably well, from the sector, they would go into a phase of a pause if the run up is a bit, steep for these names. Bajaj Finance has done remarkably well in the last 1 month. I think the stock has moved from 870-75 levels to 1040-50 plus mark, which was the recent high for Bajaj Finance. So I think in that context, it's a decent 15% plus kind of a price move for the stock price. And after such a kind of a steep rally, you generally expect that the stock goes into at least a few weeks of consolidation. So, and I think in that process, in case if it comes down to say 50% of the rally, which is closer to 975 odd mark, that could be a good trigger point or a risk reward point to initiate a fresh buy. So not expecting any major trend on an immediate basis. But I think if these stocks go into a further correction of 3-5%, that should be a good opportunity for traders who missed out in the earlier leg.
We're talking about good opportunities. What a surprise from NSE. The Diwali Muhurat session this time is in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Finally, we all get our evenings.
Yeah.
I almost didn't believe it, actually. I was like 1:45 to 2:45 p.m. I'm reading that right. But yeah.
I hope this becomes a phenomena.
I'm sure it will. I'm certain it will. They can't do this once and then take it away from us. But anyways, yes, Diwali afternoon is when we're going to have the Muhurat session. But Aditya, other than that, any other trends that you're spotting within IT? Do you think IT stocks are going to continue to see some more down days, and should they be shorted further?
I won't really short Aisha IT companies, especially the large cap IT names, because if you clearly take a look at their trend, they have been in a downtrend. And yesterday's move also, if you notice, a lot of these large cap IT names did see a bit of a recovery from the lows. So my sense is they could enter into a consolidation, maybe a time-wise correction at max, and from there on it should build on from that consolidation phase that we're looking at. And I would actually be a buyer in some of the names, large cap IT names, a name like an Infosys, a TCS, and HCL. All three stocks, my sense is, can see consolidation, a run up post a consolidation. So Infosys for me is a buy at current levels. You can easily look at a target of on the upside close to about 1650, 1700. A TCS as well looks quite interesting to me, even at current levels. The risk reward is extremely in favor with a support on the downside just below 3000. On the upside, stock can surprise you with a target of 3500, 3600 as well. And same holds true for HCL Tech as well. That stock can also test levels of 1600, 1700. So I'm talking of medium to longer term time frame. I'm not looking at shorting IT, especially large cap IT names. Rather, I would look to buy in a staggered manner in this consolidation and minor correction that we're witnessing.
Okay, so that's a take on IT. But Chakri, once again, want to come to you. And while we were talking about NBFCs, want to get your sense on the entire sector, because if I pull up the year-to-date charts of some of these companies, you have names like Manappuram, LTI Finance, Muthoot. They're some of the top Nifty 500 gainers on a year-to-date basis. In fact, something like an LTI Finance is up more than 80% just a YTD. What's your take on NBFCs and how do they compare with large private sector or PSU banks right now, given the kind of performance all of them have had in the first quarter?
No, NBFCs are in a good space. Of course, within that, there are a number of categories. Whether we just spoke about Bajaj Finance, it has run up, but that will benefit from higher, because of the GST cuts, higher auto volumes. Then all the Muthoots, they're clearly benefiting, will continue to benefit from the very high gold prices, and therefore, their loan to values look good. Their kind of collateral is very strong. Third, if you look at companies like, Sriram Transport Finance, they're also in a good space because, the volumes will pick up as the economy picks up. And the underlying to the whole thing is as interest rates come down, and now the expectation is they'll come down even further, their margins will impact and the volumes will increase. And therefore, I think we'll continue to be buyers of NBFCs.
Okay, let's get into mid-cap strategies as well while we wait for those pre-open rates to settle down. Kunal, what's on your list?
So I'll go with the buy on Oil India. That's a stock which I think after a correction of 10-15% has come back into a breakout. 400 is where the stock has crossed those levels. 424 is where I would place the targets for Oil India over the very short term, and stop loss for this trade could be kept at that breakout point of 400 mark.
Right. Aditya, what about your stock strategies?
Hoodco is something which is looking quite interesting to me. Aisha, yesterday we've seen a good up move in the stock. My sense is, and backed by volumes. So my sense is this is likely to continue. So I'll go with a Hoodco for a target of 265 on the upside, place a stop loss somewhere around 235 on the downside.
All right, those are the calls coming in from both of our experts. Let's watch out for that. But off late, Chakri, the life insurance counters are also doing very well. Some of these brokerages are also flagging it off, and they are also liking it with respect to the valuations, and after that